take something that was so much a part of a particular time, it was of a period, it was like ground zero for a particular situation to happen, and I just walked into the firestorm. You know, I was, I could read it, I could see it, I knew it, I knew all the possibilities. It's like seeing the signs and the clues and being able to track something, you know, and then make a projection off of it. I was an anthropology major for a couple of semesters at San Diego State University, and part of what we did there in that as field of endeavor is you would look at components of skeletal components of beasts that lived millions of years ago, and you would try to reconstruct the beast. You would try to project what it was. So you would look at a piece of the whole, a slice of the pie, and from that make a projection about what the whole thing was, what was possible, and how was it possible. Houston was ground zero, literally. It was. It had a life about it that was really just simply ready to pop. And I still do, by the way, have a dynamic personality. Thanks to Charlie. You know, I think that ego is okay. I'm not really worried about my ego. Egos only are issues if you try to inflict them. If you try to inflict an ego on someone else so they have to do or be or say what you say, do or be or say. Lawndale really wasn't about that. Lawndale was about just letting something grow, letting something just happen. God, there were several students out there that had been there for a year or two, and then George Bunker would come over and tell me, James, that person is not a student. They're not enrolled in anything. What? Yeah. They have to leave. What? Well, you tell them. I'm not. The pan band, man, the pan band. I mean, God, the pan band. These are 5 or 6 janitors, and they're like from the islands, from Jamaica or somewhere. They're part of the janitorial staff. Okay, so a couple of them are over cleaning up, doing something, and taking out the trash, whatever, you know. And one of them says, "Hey, Mom, you think we can make some pans?" I'm sorry. What? Drums. You know, he was asking me if he could make pans, drums, out of barrels. And I said, "Well, can you make them yourself?" "Yes, we can make them." They did. They came over. They got barrels literally from the University of Houston, where they're throwing them away. They brought them over. They heated them up. They bent in the tops. They tuned them. We had a pan band. We had an in-house band. I said, okay. Then they wanted to practice in the building. I said, well, yeah, you can practice under one condition. That is, when we have a party, you have to play for us. So they became our official house band. Now, I couldn't think of anything any nicer, to tell you the truth, than have some guys who can make their own instruments, pinging barrels, you know, to tune them. And they were great. They were absolutely great. There were a couple of painters upstairs who they drove nuts. And a couple of the painters complained. And George Bunker told me I had to make the pan band leave. That I couldn't let them leave them in the building. I said, George, I'm sorry, you got to fire me, but I'm not throwing these guys out. No way, I'm not going to do that. he said, well, there's one of the painters upstairs that's complaining all the time about how they just drive him crazy. I said, look, you know, just tell him to put some cotton in his ears. Do something. I don't care what he has to do, you know. Wear those things that you put over your head. But, I mean, there's 300 people here that love him, and there's one guy that don't. Sorry, he's out. Go throw the stupid out. That's not fair. But we never really looked at what was fair or equal. We just tried to do what the prevailing wind brought. And I wish, to be honest with you, that Lawndale today, this Lawndale right here, still had the words Lawndale Art and Performance Center. I wish the performance part was back into the mix, back into the picture. I think it adds something to the fray. It just puts another component in it that's psychologically, I think, very, very important. I can't tell you how important it was. I could go through and tell you about any number of performances that we had out there from people here. Bill Steen, anybody here see his? With the teacups, where he knocked teacups off of his daughter's head as she whirled around. Oh man, it was unbelievable. It actually was an incredible performance. It was really, really, really good. One of the best things I've ever heard, have ever seen. I could go on and on and on about Lawndale and its beginnings. I will just simply kind of sum it up by saying, as a person in this community, I just came along at the right time. I just walked into the firestorm, and I knew how to control the burners, and it was a pleasure doing it. I did, after several years, burn up. I just wobbled. I don't think anyone can go 100 miles an hour every day, all day, for year after year after year after year. Since we didn't have a budget, God, I can't tell you how many times we didn't make the payroll with one of those big art ensemble type groups. And when all was said and done, here's these guys standing there wanting their $1,800. And we didn't, I mean, that was $1,800 over what we had made at the gate. So somebody had to come up with $1,800 right then, right there, at that moment, or we're going to have some really mad dudes. Laddie Steele would leave, he'd come back in about an hour, and a lot of times he'd come back with a wad of money. I don't have no idea where he was getting it. Probably hold it up a second. But it happened in our household. You know, the first year I would put in like a couple of $1,000. The second year it was $3,000 or $4,000. The fourth year it was like $5,000 or $6,000 or $7,000 or $8,000. By the time it was through, Charmaine and I were spending about $10,000 or $12,000 or $15,000 a year on Lawndale, and we had little kids, we had a family. You know, I mean, it just and it just got harder and harder and harder, and finally I just said, man, that's it. I'm sorry. I just can't do it anymore. But I will tell you that during that time, I made a lot of art. I made art in Lawndale. I made a lot of sculpture right in Lawndale, just right there in the middle of the floor, you know. And I thought it's really, really important for a young artist to see me as kind of a lead dog in the professional world, making and actually producing art right there on the spot. Over at the other building, I got into real trouble for doing that. But again, my attitude was, well, fire me. You know, this is what I do. This is my claim to fame in the world. This is what's gotten me to the ball, and that's just it.